I'm hyped to be here. And the studio's awesome. I walked in, I see a picture of Jordan, and then I see a picture of Elvis, so I'm like, I must be in the right space.
Hello again, everyone. It's good to have you with us for this event. It figures to be an exceptional one that doesn't need any build-up.
Are you ready?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting.
This is the main event of the evening.
Athletes, huddle up. It's time to begin. Get focused. Let's go.
Athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Everybody out there, Coach Blue Robinson here. I want to thank you all so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. Greatly appreciate you doing so. We love the fact that you jump on there and give us a review. That helps get this podcast out a little bit further. Helps us communicate with you, the listener. So thanks so much. Hey, as always, check out the website, addicttoathlete.org. You're going to find all of our upcoming events, even our No One Left Behind Team Half Marathons coming up in about a week after the first airing of this podcast. We'd love to have you bring a couple of your buddies and go and push yourself through this 13-mile experience of beauty and fatigue. After you're done running, we'd love to have you go over and participate with the Addicts Fighting Back and their softball tournament. They've got a amazing event going on the same day, and it's great when two recovery worlds collide that way, by which we all get to be on the same team to help people overcome addiction. So please check out addicttoathlete.org for more information. Athletes, behind the scenes, you have no idea the chaos that just ensued for us to get to this point, but we're going to keep rocking. And I am so happy to have another guest in studio. And I like when we have guests in studio. They get to see kind of all the shenanigans that go on here in studio. But I'm so happy to have Frank Young here. And Frank, you've been a huge part of the recovery community. Warrior Strength is an amazing program that you helped start. And I want to just welcome you to the Addict to Athlete studio. But if you wouldn't mind, let's kick this podcast off by having you share a little bit about who you are, kind of your journey. And let's talk a little bit about how you decided to throw your whole heart and mind into Warrior Strength to help your community recover, much like what we do here at Team Addict to Athlete by allowing people to exercise their recovery the way that they feel and experience that progression from moving from addict to athlete, so to speak.
I love it. I'm so excited to be here. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm a huge fan of what you guys do. I always have been. I feel like our missions align very well with each other, and I'm hyped to be here. And the studio's awesome.
Thank you.
First thing I walked in, I see a picture of Jordan, Michael Jordan, somebody that I've always looked up to, and then I see a picture of Elvis, so I'm like, I must be in the right.
Dude, yeah, you don't get that very often, do you, man? The two legends.
It's perfect. Well, I'm a person in recovery. I've, I guess start at the beginning, right?
Yeah, go for it.
So I come from a family who has experienced addiction and alcoholism. It's a generational thing for us. So I grew up, like a lot of people do. And early mid-teen started to drink, use drugs. A part of my story is I started pretty fast out of the chute with some more hardcore drugs. That progressed into me basically drinking whenever I could, when I could, right? Yep. In my family, it's sort of a badge of honor in a way to be a guy that works and drinks. So, I shifted through a lot of stuff in my childhood because of my parents' addiction and alcoholism, and they were amazing. I love them. They were great parents, but they had the stuff that they went through, which my brother and I went through all at the same time with them.
Absolutely.
Graduate to me finding the love of my life, who I'm still married to in the 8th grade.
Oh, wow. That's rare. I love that.
Yeah. Shout out to Shaunell Young. That's my baby mama and my best friend for sure.
Awesome, man.
She also helped me we founded Warrior Strength together. So
brilliant.
I mentioned that because we had basically a lot of similarities going on at the same time, right? So she had a family that had addiction issues or experiences. She had a parent who was incarcerated. I had a parent who was incarcerated, and it was just, now they call it trauma bonding, but at the time it was something that we shared.
Yeah,
right?
I get it.
Yeah. So her and I, we do our thing, and we travel the road, less traveled or more traveled for some of us. We graduate to a point that we start dabbling around with crystal meth. Actually, back then it was more amphetamine. It was crank anyway. So that was a long time ago. People probably don't even know what that is now.
You're like, what is that? It's all fentanyl, unfortunately. Now I got you. I hear you.
Right. She gets pregnant. We get pregnant, I should say, with our twin sons. We stop everything that we're doing except for alcohol for me.
Gotcha.
Because for me, that was always a thing that was okay.
Yeah,
right?
it's like so normal. Yeah, gotcha.
All this other stuff, terrible. Alcohol, okay. Even though for me, when I drink, I do the terrible stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not every time, but
Only
just about every
sometimes, huh?
Yeah, but every
Gotcha.
time I've done something terrible, it seems like alcohol was involved. We have beautiful twin boys. It was an amazing experience. Fast forward about 6 to 8 months, the drugs come back into the picture.
Gotcha.
And from there, it was just off and running for us.
Just like the dam had broken, it flooded right out.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Gotcha, man.
So her and I moved out super young because of our home life. We brought my younger brother in. We were his, parents basically
Yeah.
because, he couldn't do it at home with our family. So we were at a point, at one point we had a relatively stable life. Drugs and alcohol were involved, but it was just that beginning stages of stuff.
For sure.
Yeah. So fast forward, we have the twins, the drugs get reintroduced, and in a short amount of time, her and I are at our end, literally homeless, living out of a motel on North Temple.
Wow.
Yeah, with our twin sons.
Yeah, not so great views, huh? You're like, geez.
And through a series of beautiful events that at the time I thought were horrible,
Right.
my process started, and her process started, the process of recovery. And
Wow.
yeah. So I go into treatment. Best thing that ever happens to me at that point in my life. The crazy thing about it all is I had never, with my history and my past and my level of use, I had never been to a 12-step meeting. I had never been to treatment. I had never been talked to by a counselor, none of those things.
How old were you?
27 at the time.
So you made it 27 before you had any crossroads with any of that.
And
Wow.
And my history with substances was extreme.
Yeah.
By the time I had that opportunity to go into treatment, I had been a daily meth user for about 3 years.
Man.
And I mean daily.
Yeah.
Like, whenever I could, however I could, it did not matter what was going on.
Any means necessary, huh? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I go into treatment, which was very interesting for a guy coming from that dark space of crystal meth use, with the people who use crystal meth, my brothers and sisters, God bless them all.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming into treatment, right?
Well, yeah.
So I go into treatment, and I don't know what happened, but like the second day, I felt so compelled to share something about my childhood. And that was not my jam.
No, I wouldn't imagine. It'd be like, look at all these guys.
Exactly, right? And it was like, almost like out of body, all of a sudden it just comes out.
Yeah.
And I found a moment of relief for sure in that.
Dude, the amount of trust you had to have, like not even realizing it was coming. I mean, I probably had been building up for so long. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't stop this. It's coming out, right?
Yeah.
That to me is, and I get cold chills you talking about that because I've seen it happen before. And I'm like, that has to be one of the most, I guess, like I don't know, aha moment type experiences where you're like, wait a minute, I've been carrying this for so long. Why was that the first thing that came out? It's like, I'm curious. If you didn't really know how it worked, how did you know what to do, so to speak? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
I wish I could answer that question.
yeah, it's rare, man.
I think what happened is I was in such a dark space when I entered treatment. I truly was at the end of the road. I'd had an experience in a crack house like a week prior to that.
Right.
Where I'd been on a run, and for whatever reason, I was in the bathroom and I looked at a mirror and I was able to truly see what was going on with me.
Yeah.
The facade was gone. The ego was gone. It was just me looking at my reflection. And in that moment, I realized that I hadn't seen my wife in a week. I hadn't seen my twin sons in a week. Man. I had traded all of everything that I had that was valuable to me, I had traded for a pipe.
Man.
I mean, I was at that point where first time in my life where I had ever contemplated ending it all.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't deal with what I was looking at.
Man.
So that was the beginning of that experience. So then I go into this treatment center, and I'm totally manipulated in the very best way by the owner of that treatment center, who was like a 20-year recovery guy, who basically fed my ego to get me in there because he knew I needed it.
Wise.
Yes, brilliant. And I get into that first group, and I'm sitting there in a circle.
Yeah.
And this other guy walks into to lead the meeting. The counselor walks in.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, no, that's not the guy
That's not like I signed up with.
told me I was so great and that I probably was just having a little trouble and he could help me.
Yeah.
Right? And this guy was the polar opposite.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And he challenged me. And initially I challenged back,
As we do.
right? And for whatever reason, a day or two later, I can't remember exactly, I was able to share that thing that I was so ashamed of that I wasn't willing to ever share with anybody else.
Yeah.
And I did it in a setting with people I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think what it was deep down, my spirit was like, okay, this is your chance to do this.
Yeah, man.
You've got an opportunity.
Yeah, don't waste it, huh?
Here it is, And it started such an amazing process. I look at that part of my life, I look at that beginning stage, and I just am in awe.
Yeah.
So I'm in treatment. My wife is still using. I want to fix that any way that I can.
I can bet.
That amazing counselor said, "Oh no, that's not your journey. You're going to focus on you. You know. But here, I'm going to give you this information. If she wants help, tell her to give me a ring, and we'll get her into a different treatment center."
Nice, man.
She did it.
Dude, that is so rare. And I have a lot of questions about that. But first off, I want to kind of get back to that initial thing where you're being challenged. And, I'm a therapist and worked at Utah County where Addict Athlete started. And I remember doing that with people and having them push back. And I'm like, and I love it. And I used to, my old clients, they're like, dude, Blue's the biggest jerk.
Yeah.
And I loved it because the counselor, we can see that heart inside. And we know that, like, it's not the authentic self. It's not who you are. But he must have recognized immediately. He's like, hey, tough guy, you're not talking to me that way.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing to throw back at people when they got like that is like, do you think you're a good dad? Like, yeah, I have a great relationship with my kids. I'm like, then why are you here?
Right.
And, they used to piss them off so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And then after you don't know me and all that stuff, I'm like, I do know you, And then it's coming back around and being like, but if you're serious and you want to be the best dad you can be, I'll help you.
Yeah.
But you've got to do the heavy lifting. I do miss that in doing group therapy and stuff, because now with private practice, it's one-on-one, but I love that. But your willingness to let it go and to pull it in, like that was proof that it was time.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this because you may be a person that will shatter this mindset I've had for years. And I've never seen it. This is why I really want your honest take on it. I've never seen a relationship that has addiction in common survive. And I've had people up in arms with me about this because I'm like, if there's a history of use with a husband and wife, the chances are it's not going to work. And I'm blown away that now you guys have been in recovery for this long and it's working. Mm-hmm. You may be the first person that I come in contact with that's going to get me to eat my words. I know it's hard. Don't get me wrong. Because you guys know this. You're one emergency away from some kind of, maybe just this one time, but you guys are doing something together that I really want to know because I've never seen it, brother. Yeah. So tell me about when she went into treatment, how your relationship changed, and we'll move forward from there because I'm so blown away by that.
So, she goes into treatment, and the treatment providers, looking at it now with the experience that I have with many people over the last 20 years, great providers, right? They would allow us to. She would come to my treatment center for family night. I would go to her treatment center for family night.
That already is insane. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Well done, whoever those providers are, because that was usually what happens is they're like, you got to leave him. Mm-hmm. You got to get far away. And I hated when therapists and counselors would do that. I'm like, you can't tell them that.
Yeah.
So out the gate, they let you do that.
Yes. And she starts doing her thing. I'm doing my thing. It's amazing and so damn uncomfortable all at the same time because we're untying all these dysfunctional knots that we have picked up from our childhood, that we have picked up together. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with 4-year-old twin boys. I'm trying to hang on to my job. We're living with my brother, who at the time was actively drinking and using because we didn't have anywhere else to go. Yeah. And Blue, some of the very best experiences of my life were at that time.
Oh, man.
Like her and I just grabbing the twins because we didn't have a car. Yeah. I mean, we were at the bottom, we're rebuilding, but we were at the bottom. grabbing those boys, jumping on tracks, and going to Liberty Park to go run through the sprinklers. I mean, literally me bawling.
Yeah.
A guy with a devil tattoo on his arm.
Yeah, man. Doesn't really fit the mold, but I like it. I love it.
I'm bawling because I'm watching my wife and my boys playing in the water at Liberty Park.
Something so simple, but yet so meaningful.
Yeah, we would take 2-liter bottles of soda and fill them with water because we didn't have water bottles.
Yeah, man.
And we'd just go down there and we'd make a lunch, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, whatever, and we'd go stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was,
simple pleasures.
So simple and so authentic and so real to have these emotions back. Even the terrible ones, because for a long time for me, I struggled up and down emotionally, going through the withdrawal process where I always chuckle because people, I'm 60 days into this, I'm 9 months into this, I'm 1 year into this, and I'm good now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my history and I'm going, it took me 8 or 9 years just to get a little stable emotionally.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Is this? Yeah.
So she's in treatment, I'm in treatment, and we just start living our lives together, and
normal lives,
yeah,
right? You're like, this is what normal life is like.
We're attending 12-step support meetings together. We're building community together. And for me, that was the first, maybe the first introduction to a real community that I'd ever had in my life.
Right.
I'd always been big on sports. Were my first escape. They were my first.
Yeah.
I'm going to save you from what's going on. So I loved being on a team. I loved the camaraderie. I loved practice. I loved talking to guys at school about the games, all that stuff. But at that point, that was like our first parlay into being around people who weren't as dysfunctional.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
As dysfunctional. I like how you put that. Yeah. As dysfunctional.
Because there's some dysfunction that goes on.
100%.
Yeah, there totally is. And her and I worked. She went back. She became an LSAC. She went back to school. I continued to work at the job that I've had. That job was a big reason why I got sober, because they gave me an opportunity for treatment.
That's huge too.
I was a daily meth user, heavy equipment operator, threatening the people that I worked with, my boss. I mean, I was out of my mind. Right?
And you're thinking, I got this maintained, but you don't. Mm-hmm.
And I finally ran into that boss that was like, I think you got a problem.
Dude, that's awesome, man. These people in your life that point out the obvious, that aren't afraid to, what I call, like, sacrifice a relationship by being real with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty awesome. I mean, from the treatment provider to your boss to even your wife and you, like, that's in addiction, we don't have a lot of people that will speak the truth to us because of the fear of losing the relationship or having it end, horribly wrong. I think it's cool that you had some of these people that saw it and would call you out despite your stature, despite your anger, your frustration. I mean, they're just like it or not, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. That's big stuff, man.
Yeah, and I would like to, I've heard a lot of people say that they were a chameleon, when they were using, and I see myself when I hear that back then, because I could I could make a pretty quick assessment because of my childhood on how people would respond. So if I needed to be funny man, I was funny man. If I needed to be tough guy, I was tough guy. If I needed to be smart guy, I was smart guy. So I would manipulate people in a variety of ways to get them to never ask or say to me those things. Right?
Yeah.
And with that boss, he was just point blank, like, no, you don't get to threaten this person.
Yeah.
You got to show up for work.
Pull your head out.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, man,
And honestly, it was such a relief when it finally all came down. Mm-hmm. It really was. And I look back at it, and it was a divine thing. Sure. It was like, I used to tell myself at about 3 or 4 or 5 years into this process, I would tell myself it all lined up this one time for you. Mm-hmm. Because I had watched my dad struggle.
Yeah.
In and out of county jail, in and out of state prisons, in and out of treatment centers. I had watched, he was decimated by addiction.
Yeah.
And he's got a cool story too.
I'll bet.
Yeah, I helped him get sober 12 years ago. And
my gosh.
He works, no, longer than 12 years ago, 15 years ago.
Man.
Ish. I'm not good with dates at all.
Yeah, me either, man. Numbers.
And he's, he is a, a chaplain for the Salvation Army.
Oh, man.
And he works with the homeless population in North Salt Lake.
That is powerful.
Or, excuse me, North Las Vegas.
North Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, he's been down there 7 years. And for me, he's one of the people that I look to when my mind starts playing tricks on me. Because I watched, like I said, he was incarcerated all of my teen years.
Yeah.
Heroin addiction, meth addiction, a criminal lifestyle, in and out of prison. And to see how he lives his life today is a big deal to me.
Dude, that is amazing. That is wild. And you like me have every excuse in the world to be a world-class addict. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have all the trauma, all the pain, all the stuff that necessitates a great story to become an addict. I'm curious, like, you have that history with Dad, and I know that there's love and compassion there, but as you're going through this stuff, you're probably looking at yourself and you're like, dude, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through, but yet it's on that path. When you started making those changes, what really stood out to you about being like a legitimate father, like a real father? Because I had a hard time with that, brother. I grew up with a single mom and 7 stepdads. I mean, my mom got married when she was 14, so she was a kid raising kids. And I'm like, when I became a dad, I'm like, this is the weirdest thing, because what do dads do? Well, they yell at you, they hurt you, they leave scars on your body. And I'm like, I can't fathom that. And then I'm holding this little kid. I'm like, how can anyone hurt this? I'm curious when you started realizing the magnitude of what a father was.
So for me, it was always a really big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I was using, I held it in a very high regard. And it was such an important part of showing me what I didn't want to do anymore. Because I know how much I loved those babies, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? They were like the apple of my eye, but here I was. And I wasn't living the life that was in alignment with how I felt.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So for me, once the process starts happening and unfolding, and I'm watching and I'm seeing the effect that my drug addiction had on those little guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
I knew at that point that I was committed to bringing value to their life, right? And being there and trying to do it the best that I could. I'm no way, shape, or form the best or an expert at it, but I do know and understand that my job is to teach them and to support them and to, hopefully show them a way of life that's going to make them the best that they can be.
For sure.
Happy, joyous, and free.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it too. I mean, I look at this kind of stuff, and I remember working like many years ago with folks at kids and stuff, and they were so afraid, and like, I don't want my kids to turn out like me. I'm like, they won't if you share with them like your strength. It's like you now have just overcome and conquered something absolutely amazing. So when your kids are up to you and they're like, I'm having a problem with this teacher, or I'm struggling with this friendship, or I've been asked to use this, you have all the answers now. You know what I'm saying? Like you can say like, hey, you could do that, but this is what's going to happen. I mean, my kids pretty much grew up in Addict to Athlete. We've been going now for 12 years. And I look at these pictures of my kids when they were little, and like they grew up with this stuff. They've seen athletes they got really close to that have passed away because of the addictions. And it's one of the most wild things that I'm like, they are so in tune. And it's not because we shelter them from it, it's because we invite them into it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You've seen it.
That transparency, I'm a firm believer that honesty will never lead you astray.
100%, man.
Ever.
100%.
And any endeavor. I mean, it's one of my core principles as a man is I have to be honest with myself and I have to be honest with you. 100%. Right? So that was one thing that Shaunell and I did when they were 3-4 years old. Is like, hey, we're in treatment now because we have, at the time we were saying stuff like, we're addicted to drugs. We need to be in treatment now. And we would talk to them about their grandparents and their uncles and all that stuff, their aunts, those people who have also suffered. We were super transparent with them throughout that entire process. And we've done that with all the kids that we've had since then.
That's wild.
Like we start having that conversation about a genetic predisposition when they're young.
Yeah. So it doesn't catch them off guard. That's an amazing thing. Listeners, that doesn't happen.
We do.
I mean, how many people have you come in contact with that like suppress it and they hide it and they just, hope that doesn't happen? And when it's like, you know what, be real. I've had many clients I've worked with over the years that were when we owned residential treatment centers that would say, oh, Dad's on vacation. He's here working. Like, don't do that. They're like, well, Dad's at Disneyland and I'm here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what? I'm with you, man.
It made me laugh. My grandma, God bless her soul, who was an angel to me, when I was a teenager, when my dad would be in prison, he'd be in Gunnison or down south. She'd always tell her friends, well, he's down south in school.
Down south in school, yeah. I like it, man.
I'd be sitting there like, yeah, he's not.
And then we wonder why we can't have real conversations when they grow up, right? It's like one of the biggest things I've always saw with my kids was when they'd say, Dad, look at me. And I'd look at them, they'd do some weird tumble. I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. Go back to the adult conversation. Dad, look at me. And they do the same tumble. I'm like, that's great. And it hit me one day that the reason why they keep saying that is because they want to see how long you'll look at them.
They want to.
Because if they are asking you to look at them at that age, when they turn, teenage years and beyond, they know that when they come to you, that you'll see them.
Yeah, every interaction that we have, not only with our children, but with everybody that we interact with, is building a process of trust.
100%.
And that's the one thing that I've learned throughout, going on my second decade of this, and I don't know how that time happened because I don't
seems
feel
like just
that
yesterday, huh? You're like, wait a minute. It seems like yesterday.
But like these interactions that we have, to me, I hold in a sacred space in my heart, or I try to be mindful of it, And, sometimes when you're dealing in community and, you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 people you're around.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself that every opportunity I'm building a relationship with somebody.
100%.
And then I usually try to remind myself, in order for me to build a relationship, I have to be present and I have to be honest.
Be there.
Yeah.
See, but that's the thing though, brother. And it brings up a question. And, we look at like, okay, so what's going on in this world? And there's so much we got to talk about, but I want to throw this in here because I think it's prevalent. The hard part about what you're doing, what I've been doing with my family and so many other people that get this mindset is that they know it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. And once you start that change, you have to be committed to it, right? Because I look at what's going on in our world where there's so much dysfunction and there's broken relationships and there's all these bad things that happen because it's convenient to just let it lie, right? Let it die, so to speak. And I'm a firm believer that if we want to change our culture, we have to start with exactly what you're talking about. You have to step up. Like, it's not a sexy thing to talk about, that if you want to really change this fentanyl epidemic and everything else that's going on, we have to start at the home. And it's going to take years. It's going to take years. No one does what you're doing. No one takes the hard path. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you and your wife did, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But what you've done is start to create this atmosphere of like, through thick and thin, we're gonna do this. I mean, we're committed. I don't know, man. What do you see with commitment these days? What do you see with like level? I mean, we're gonna talk about your program here, but like, what do you see with levels of commitment? Because you've been in treatment with people that's like, I'm just divorcing, I'm getting out of here. And sometimes it's because there's histories that cannot be rectified.
Right.
But how many people throw in the towel when they still have more in the tank?
The majority.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to say there's something wrong with them.
No.
I think oftentimes we have these subconscious or these patterns of behavior that we don't even know we're operating in.
Yeah.
So I see it a lot in the fitness world. It's like, okay, I'm coming in. I'm coming in hot. I want to do all of the reps and every exercise, every opportunity I get, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they hit that point where it loses, the motivation is gone.
Yeah.
And then they're just left with, the commitment part of it. Mm-hmm. And for most folks, that's where they end.
Yeah.
And I think that there are several ways to address it in any area of your life. First, you have to be honest with yourself about what you want.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter. I can tell 1,000 people what I want to do, but if I don't believe what I'm going to do, or at least have a little bit of confidence that I'm going to ride the storm out, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Second is they have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And the plan has to be sustainable.
Exactly.
Right. And I know you know this probably better than I do. People in recovery, it's an all or it's a nothing.
Yeah, man. Black/white.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, I'm going to run 2 marathons this month.
Yeah. Yeah.
where like, I'm sure or like when they come into the gym with me and I'm going to do all of this, I'm going to say, well, you're just starting this process. Let's start building a foundation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Let's start building a foundation. And I think that's one of the beauties, and that's one of the things that makes me want to share strength training, barbell work, kettlebell work with people is it is a process.
Oh yeah.
I don't just get to come into the gym and deadlift 600 pounds.
Oh, you can't just walk in there, roll your sleeves up, and grab it?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, does it?
No, all of the work that I have to do over years is where I find all my magic. It's not when I pull the 600 pounds. It's every time I show up to a training session that I don't want to show up to.
Yeah.
It's every time when I get halfway through and I think to myself, I could just get on Instagram instead of doing the rest of this workout.
Absolutely.
Or it's like, today I don't feel like deadlifting, even though it's my deadlift day, so I think I'm going to do pull-ups instead.
Yeah, man.
No, it's that discipline of staying consistent. And, you know, for me, I was sober 9 years. 9 years of recovery. Shaunell and I rebuild our lives. Homeowners, promotions at work, happy kids, beautiful relationship, and then I used again. She used again.
Yeah.
And within a year, we were at that starting point one more time in a different way. We were building all the way over.
Like, dang it, we had to take a knee, DNF, and start over again, huh?
But what that beautiful, painful, sorrowful year taught me was, man, life is a process.
Yeah.
And those 9 years and this 1 year are no different. They're all part of my process.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to share with people, especially if they have a history of use and reuse. It's like, hold on, bro. Hold on.
I like it.
What if that first day that you were in recovery is connected to that 15th time you relapsed, which is connected to that right now?
Yeah.
Maybe it took every one of those experiences to get you right here, right now.
You're exactly where you need to be. Yep.
What are you going to do with now?
Yeah.
Who cares what happened to all those years?
Yeah.
You know, because for me, when I used for that year, it taught me a lot.
I'll bet.
I'm not an advocate for it, but I know that for me, it was supposed to happen because it put me on a path.
It was a necessary step for where you are right now.
100%.
I totally agree with that.
I would not be the man that I am today if I had not had that experience.
Yeah.
You know, it solidified so many things that I think I was a little gray about.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
You look at it, you think, why did sobriety lose its purpose? Like, I thought we had this purpose, and then something kind of sneaks in, and, I call it the slip, SLIP, sobriety's lost its purpose, and then, like, hey, we got to reestablish that purpose. It sounds like it took a year for you to do that.
It did. And the reason why I did it was because at that point I had 4 kids.
Yeah.
And we'd had a couple.
You doubled.
Yeah, we doubled. And I 100% came back to the idea that I did not want those kids to live through anything but Shaunell and I living our best lives.
Man.
No matter what.
That's huge.
It was so huge. And it put me on a different path.
For sure.
And a path that for me, I'm so grateful for. You know, I look at the process way different than I did before.
I bet you do. You've had to.
And it was such a humbling experience because I legit, Blue, I used to have people tell me, you think you're the vice president of this program, you know?
Yeah, man. I love it.
Because you know, and the beauty in all of that is it opened my eyes up to so many different things.
For sure.
And I think we're seeing it now. That was over 10 years ago. So, and we're seeing fruition of a lot of that stuff now. There are so many cool kick-ass organizations that are doing cool things.
I hear you.
To serve people in a different way. Man,
you're so right. I was talking to Jason DeGraw yesterday from the Addicts Fighting Back about this very thing. When I started Addict Athlete in 2011, there wasn't anything else there, and it was kind of a crazy thing. We got blowback, we got pushback. A very large community like infiltrated our meetings and were like, "You guys are doing it wrong." It was weird, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm doing this. And the crazy thing about it is I don't think people outside of the state of Utah realize what we have here. And the people inside of the state of Utah don't know how lucky we are. And it's one of the neatest things that, like, this grassroots level, this heart and mind combining is what's created all these little entities of people that just care. It's not like this anywhere. You probably know this. You go to any other state and stuff, it's like, but like when they hear what we're doing, I really think the country should look at what Utah's doing and really start activating the people in their communities to start doing what we're doing. You're a firm believer, like I am, that movement equals healing. You can't just stay put in addiction, or else that's where you'll be. And I felt that same way in groups and in other meetings that take steps to get to where you're going. That you've got to move. You can't just sit there. You have to do something. It's something tangible, something big. And that's why I'm so eager to talk to you about this, because one day I was looking through Facebook and boom, I saw this program. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, this is rad. And I love it, man, because I got a coach of mine who gets very territorial. It's the funniest thing. And I love it more than anything because I'm just like, dude, calm down.
He's just passionate, man.
He's passionate, but he's like, when Fit to Recover started, he's like, oh, they're copying us. I'm like, knock it off.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jed, there's no way we can do all this by ourselves. Mm-hmm. There's no way. And I said, I love that great minds are thinking alike. I talked to Ian. Ian's like, I had the idea years ago, but it took a while for it to get steamed up. And I'm like, I love this stuff. Addict Athlete came after I met Todd Crandall, who started Racing for Recovery in Ohio. And so I'm like, these are not unique ideas, but the passion is there. So I remember scrolling through Facebook and I saw, this warrior, and I'm like, what is this? And I started following you guys. I'm like, this is rad.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. Tell me a little bit about kind of your passion. And I really want to jump into, you and your wife started this. My wife and I started this. It's the greatest work partner I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like people tell me I got to get away from my wife for 8 hours a day. I'm like, I love working with her. It's one of the coolest things ever. We make a great team. But I'm curious about kind of like, this warrior strength. Like, tell me about it because I love what you're doing. When we got these grants, you guys were the first one to go like, we know what we're doing, full throttle. I'm like, I started feeling like we got to catch up with them. Like, look what they're doing. And I'm like, this is rad. I love this. So tell me a little bit about why it started and what it is.
First, big shout out to you for being a trailblazer.
I don't even feel that way, brother, to be honest with you.
But you don't have to feel that way. It's the truth.
Oh, thanks, man.
You were doing it before everybody else, and we need people to follow. Right. And you were willing to do that because I'm sure in 2011 when you started it.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Oh, yeah. Because there was a totally different perspective and narrative about recovery. And that's what I was trying to refer to earlier. Mm-hmm. So much has changed.
Yeah.
Right. There are so many people now with so many different modalities that get to serve so many different people that weren't being served before.
Yeah. 100%.
And we get to help improve people's wellness.
Yeah.
And regardless of how they found their recovery, rarely do I meet somebody who's disciplined physically who doesn't have a better recovery for it.
100%.
Rarely.
I hear you.
So that was part of my process. I was sober the 9 years. I was in recovery. I don't know some of these words. I've tried to be really impeccable with the words that I use, and they don't align with me.
To be honest with you, Ben, I don't like the word recovery.
But they all know it's generic.
You know what
People know it is.
Yeah, I got you.
So I call it a process.
You know what? I like that a lot because I'm a firm believer that if we're always stuck in recovery, we're not going to heal. It's like you're out there having a football, tossing a football with your son, right? You're playing high school football and you break your arm. 20 years later, you're like, hey, son, I got to take it easy. I'm in recovery from an arm break. Don't you hate that? I hate that more than anything because in this industry, we don't like the word healing. So I love the word process. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah. Well, again, it came to me because like a process. I call it a process of transformation.
Beautiful.
Because that's what it's been for me. And that's going to be my entire life's event.
100%.
Right? And if you want to take it even back further, it might have started that first time I ever did anything, right? So if it's all part of this, and what I choose to call a spiritual experience, I don't get to say, well, this part of it is good and this part of it's bad.
Yeah.
I get to say it's an entire thing that's mine.
It's a whole process. I love it.
Yeah, that's part of my thing. And I'm with you. I am not powerless. And I've had so many people push back on that. I'm very mindful of the words that I use when I refer to me and other people because they're powerful.
Yeah.
And my mindset is my tool.
Yeah.
It's how I live my life. And it's going to determine what I do.
Oh my gosh, man. If I could tell you how many times I've had that debate about what an addict is and what it isn't, I'm like, I refuse to call my athletes that. I mean, because it's who they were. It's not who they are.
Love it, dude.
And in fact, even our name, Addict to Athlete, we use the Roman numeral on purpose so that it can be that in the Roman numeral system, they don't identify zero. So even at your worst, you're still here.
Right.
And so once you do anything to create more and you bring in the next column, that's a foundation. That's how things are built. And so I've had so many people get so up in arms about, well, you have to identify you're an addict. Yeah, you know what? I am an addict, but I'm a father and I'm a brother and I'm an athlete and I'm a coach and I'm a therapist, and believe it or not, a couple of years, I was a bishop, and I'm all these things, but an addict is a part of me, not who I am.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you see that too, and I understand the principle behind it. I get it.
Me too.
But that's for that specific area. I wanted to do things different. I'm so glad you feel that same way. Powerlessness. It takes power for people to even have the courage to walk into that gym or to even like throw in that towel or to sit in the back of that cop car. Does that make sense? I mean,
Absolutely.
don't dumb yourself down. Don't you love that?
Bro, you're speaking the language right now.
Yeah, brother.
So what happened for me is I had a great friend. He was he was my first coach, but he was also a good friend to me. And I've always had lower back issues. And I'm going to share a little bit about my journey with strength and how spiritual it's been for me. At the time, I had lower back issues, pretty bad, pretty serious. I was saw by a doctor, and I was 2 or 3 years into this process. And they say, okay, you need to stop everything you're doing physically.
Oh, man.
And you need to get a hold of a pain management clinic. And I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
You know, I'd watched my dad struggle with methadone for years.
It's heartbreaking.
I was in recovery. I was freaked, blue. I just had one of these, oh my God moments.
Yeah.
And I called my coach, who was my friend, and somebody who had mentored me, and I'd mentored him over 3 or 4 years or whatever. And I said, hey man, here's the deal. They're telling me this. And he's a great strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
He's one of the best kettlebell instructors I've ever met.
Brilliant.
He's brilliant. He's great. Shout out to James Solstrom.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a very direct guy.
Yeah.
He's like 6'4", former Marine, guy in recovery. He's
the
legit.
epitome of a coach then.
He's legit. I said, James, this is what they're telling me, man. I don't know what to do. And he goes, well, you can listen to them, or we can try to strengthen your back. I said, okay. And he started me on a regimen of kettlebell.
Plan B, huh?
He started me on a regimen of kettlebell work, and that started my journey into strength training. You know,
Dang, dude.
and I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
It made me feel so good emotionally.
Movement equals healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like my modality. I was having these moments where there was no chatter in my mind.
Yeah. Got quiet, huh?
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or all of a sudden, something that I was struggling with, I had no clarity about, didn't even know how to even look at a situation. All of a sudden, in the middle of a set of kettlebell swings or a Turkish get-up or whatever it was, boom. I was like, oh no, I need to do that.
Brilliant.
Right?
I love it, man.
And then I start learning about this practice, and then I graduate into a barbell, and all of a sudden my back's feeling better.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, man, if I'd have listened to that doctor, that PA, I would have been at the methadone clinic.
Dude.
You know what I mean? So,
Man.
this process starts happening. Simple strength training, barbell squats, barbell deadlifts, kettlebell swings, basic movements, right? And it starts growing for me.
Brilliant, man.
And it starts, you know, like I said, it centered me. And all of a sudden I was like, man, I feel so good. And I have this purpose now. And I'm finding this discipline that I never had in 10 years in recovery, where I was smoking cigarettes and I was drinking Mountain Dew and I was eating ice cream. I still love ice cream.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing all of those things. But all of a sudden I had this shift.
Right.
And it just grew.
But see, most of the guys I've worked with that have been in your line of work, the last thing they want to do after a heavy labor job is to jump into a gym and push around heavy labor things. I'm so curious about that mindset. Like, how did you distinguish the two? Because you had a very intense construction. I mean, you're in what, like heavy equipment and that stuff, murder on your back. I can only imagine.
Right. But it was
different, wasn't it?
It was different, but it was intelligent programming. It was like, okay, you're just going to start here, which for my ego was the best thing ever, because I was the type of guy that wouldn't go work out at a gym because I wasn't the strongest one there, and I knew that.
See?
I mean, my ego was out of control when I was sober for a long time, and I freely admit that today.
Yeah.
You know, but it's again, you know, I'd heard it's not about the destination, it's the journey.
You hear that like cliche, but it's real. It's true.
I learned that in a gym. I did not learn that in the tens of thousands of meetings I had attended over 10 years.
100%, man.
I had learned that in a gym. I had learned that discipline is doing what you don't want to do because it's good for you.
100%.
Not because of how you feel about it. So these are all principles.
And you look at that, and that's why I loved when Addict Athlete started, is because you use those same principles in recovery. You use that same principle in recovery. What does it look like? I mean, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
It's about doing the things you don't want to do. I don't want to go to this court. I don't want to go see this judge. I don't want to go to that probation officer. I don't want to go to treatment. But you do it anyway, and guess what happens, right? You get stronger. You start to understand things. You start to let people in. You know, instead of using DCFS as an obstacle, you use them as a catalyst. You know, it's kind of like once you reframe that, and that's why I think the marriage of sports and recreation to recovery, that's why they're so greatly intertwined. When I started really diving deep into this, I'm like, wait a second, there's a hell of a lot of principle in what we're doing. And I had no idea where it would take us. But I love the fact that you're seeing it too in real time as you're going through this.
Yeah.
And so you fell in love with it.
100%. So then I get presented another divine opportunity. And I become the fitness director at Fit to Recover. And yeah. I was there for 3 years, and we did some amazing things, and I'm always grateful for that experience because that's where I found my passion to really work with other people in recovery.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I said, honest, I don't know how many meetings, thousands over the years, and I never felt the level of connection I did in any of those meetings with a group like I did coaching.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's different, isn't it? It's a different
thing.
Beast. I hear you.
And for me, it's the interactive part of it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a very hands-on coach. Safety is physical and emotional safety is one of the foundational pieces of warrior strength.
I love it.
For sure. Like our space, they call it the house of tears because people cry there that never cry.
Yeah, man.
Right?
I see it. I love it, man.
So I work at Fit to Recover. That ends at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm going to be totally straight. And now I think I can be totally honest about it. When the pandemic started, everybody was freaked out. I was hyper focused on the ability to bring people together in recovery.
Oh, dude, it was such a crucial time. It's ruined so much.
Yes.
I hear you.
And Shaunell and I were willing to take that leap. And I just said, regardless of what everybody is saying is going on or could be true or maybe isn't true, I know what is true from my 20 years, in this process. When people in recovery don't come together, they die.
And that has been documented.
We know
it's
that.
happened. Yeah.
You and I have lived that. We've lived that.
Yep.
We know what happened.
100%.
Right? Well, yeah, now in hindsight, we can look back and
we can see it now,
and
too.
It's like, oh my
God. You're
God.
right.
So Shaunell and I started Warrior Strength, and we started out at Liberty Park. We didn't have a space. We didn't have equipment.
Yeah.
I threw a Facebook post out, and I said, here's the deal. We're going to meet. We're going to do the best that we can to stay distanced and all that stuff, but we want you to know that we're here.
Yeah.
10, 15 people first time.
Yep.
Second week, a little bit more.
Yep.
Third week, a little bit more. All of a sudden, 40, 50, 60 people started.
Yeah, man. I love it. It's the same blueprint that happened here.
Right,
I love it,
right.
man.
That's because people are supposed to come together, and it takes leaders to bring people together.
100%. Man.
I try to remind myself, no matter what, my job is to serve.
Absolutely.
And I'm there to show up.
Show up. Yeah.
So this process happens. Again, another super cool thing happens. We get access to because of the pandemic, we get access to this powerlifting gym where because nobody's coming in there.
I think that's when I first started seeing you, because it wasn't your space, but I'm like, this is cool. These guys are doing this. Yeah.
So we were able to, lease some time. We were doing one class a day. The community continued to build. It just started. It was this very organic thing that I look back at, and I'm just like, wow, it's so cool.
I know. I wish I would have taken more mental notes back then too, because it was such a weird, exciting time. That I'm like, it's kind of funny. Like there's that thing that's on The Office where he says, "I wish we could know that we were in the good old days when we're in them."
So good,
right?
The Office is the best.
Think about it, right? I'm like, that's such a great thing. Like if someone would tell us these are the good old days, pay more attention. I would have been able to probably write a book on it, but right. I hear you. Yeah. I'm curious though, the name. What the name? I love your name.
So, for me, I have always wanted to be that humble warrior.
Yeah,
and that's been part of my process to try to be that.
Yeah, I can see you fill those boots very well. I can see it, man.
Thank you.
Your heart's there.
So I had an experience right before my departure at FTR. I literally had an experience. And it was like I was being reborn. Yeah. And I couldn't explain it. It was like there was a lot of fire around. I was in it, but I wasn't hot. But it was just this whole visual thing that took place. And I I didn't know what it meant, you know? And then the things happen, and all of a sudden, this pandemic is going on. I mean, it was at the very beginning of it, and, you know, the people don't have anywhere to go, you know, and I just thought, what is it going to take right now? It's going to take some warriors.
Yeah.
And they got to have strength.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Man. That is the coolest stuff. I love that.
So, you know, our foundation is always about safety. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I want to share with people who are listening. We believe that we're going to meet people where they're at. We're going to allow them the dignity and the power to navigate whatever they need to navigate without trying to be fixed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we're there to hold space. We talk a lot in the gym about holding space.
I love it.
That means if I'm struggling and I'm in it, you're just going to walk over and maybe stand by me.
I love it, man.
He's like, hey, I'm here, bro.
Let's do this.
You know,
I love it.
I'm here to walk with you, you know?
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. So all of our trainers are people that I have had the pleasure and the honor of training. They're all Strong First certified kettlebell and barbell instructors.
Nice.
They're people that I've had for 3 or 4 years now, you know. We believe in helping people achieve whatever they want to achieve.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Where they want to go, not where they're pre-planned destinations. Like we'll go where you want to go.
And let's you know, a lot of times what'll end up happening, we have a good retention rate. Like, I don't want to sound grandiose, but people come to the gym, they don't leave the gym.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
That tells you something.
It tells me a lot. We have a big, we have a lot of members who are female, which tells me that the space is totally safe for them.
100%.
They stay. We have good men who are willing to support the values that we have in our community, which I think is very important. We have a good mix of people in recovery and people who have either been affected by recovery or are recovering from something else.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many people over the last 3 years have said to me, I didn't know how much I need this.
Exactly.
I didn't know I had this to deal with. I didn't know that this was an issue for me. And then I got here and I watched how you guys operate. You know, we start every class out with a group discussion. Yeah. We do a little breath work.
So important. That part is so important. I think that, like, I like sober gyms and stuff, but there's something special about bringing your stuff to the mat and then working it out. Literally. Yeah. Working it out, leaving it there.
For me, it will always be quality before quantity.
100%.
Always.
Yeah.
You know, I try to operate as a man and as a leader and, you know, just as a person.
Yeah.
I'm going to give as much attention to one person as I would for 5 people.
Yep.
10 people.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, you know. For me, the mission is the most important part of warrior strength.
100%.
You know, and that's showing up for people. You know?
Yeah, man. And that's not easy to do either. I mean, you probably felt the same growing pains I have where you can only do so much. And so we recruit these people that have the same heartbeat and then that rhythm so that they can then be the next line of defense too, because you know, you and I and all these leaders out there, it's so hard for us because we'll do it, but we also have family, we also have personal needs and things that we got to do. And so I love the fact that you are bringing these people in and they're catching the message. It's not about bigger, better, faster, stronger. Yeah. It's about show up. Yeah. You know, I say this all the time. The whole way you begin a race, you know, athletes take your mark. I love the fact that you said, take your place. It's going to be a safe place, right? Look how cool that is. And then it's like, get set. This is like, look around. Look at what you're doing. Be safe with it. And then go. Yeah. And when you go, you lean into it. And I love that mindset, man. So when you said that, take your place, you know, and you have a safe place, like that is such a crucial thing for people because they don't know, I mean, in recovery, early recovery addiction, you don't have a place. Right. So when someone says, welcome, you have a place, take it. Whoo. We're here. We're here. Right? Let's go. The big part of that group discussion, I think that is so beneficial is that it's not like super in-depth. It's not, oftentimes I just throw a question out like, what did we talk about today? What is your intention for this class? Yeah. Like, what do you want the next, we do a general warm up and then a little breath work. So we're like 10 minutes in the class. Yeah. I said to him, what do you want for the next 50 minutes of your life? Exactly. Man, and some folks who are new or whatever, they'll just think, what do I want? Yeah. And sometimes I'll get I don't know. And I said, well, let's think about that. Let's be mindful. Let's have intention. You get to create your life. It's because no one asked anybody that. You never ask somebody in addiction, what do you want? Because when you pull back all the dumb stuff, it's like, no, what do you really want? They don't know. No one's ever asked them because they never expected it to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll today, I said, I want you, while we're exercising, while we're connecting, because we do lots of high fives and, and stuff like that, just to bring people together, a little moral support. I want you to think about what this hour is turning into for you. And at the end of class, I just had the greatest conversation. About like, I want more focus in my life. She said, I want to be more mindful. I want to know what I'm doing. And I said, welcome, sister. That's what we're all trying to do. Right?
That's the ticket. Yeah.
Yeah. So safety is a big component. Honesty is a big component. Compassion is a big part of what we do, and perseverance, right? And I don't mean perseverance like, oh my God, I just got to make it through this day. I mean, like, what is your end goal, and are you going to commit to it?
Yeah. Absolutely. I love the metaphors that this kind of stuff leaves with them too, because they're like, if I've been carrying around the emotional weight that's equal to an elephant, right? But then they sit down and they're lifting like the physical weight that's the equivalent, of like, 25, 30, 40, 50 pounds. And they're like, I can do this, And as they build that muscle, they're able to carry like weight. But what they find themselves doing is unpacking it all.
100%.
Don't you love it, man?
I do.
mean, you have a different window than what we do, because we do the gym stuff, but a lot of ours is outdoor recreation. We do the gym stuff and things, and it's great. We have the space now. But ours has always kind of been just that movement too, and I love it because you see these awakenings in them. Like I just benched like 250 pounds. Like I can move that much weight. It's like that's like, then that means like that conversation needs to happen with the wife. Like that's gonna be heavy, but I've already lifted heavy. Does that make sense? Oh, I love that mindset. I love the metaphors.
So I have spiritual concepts.
Yeah.
For the majority of the movements that we do, and I share those with people as we do.
Share some of the ones.
Sure.
That are
so for me, the big one, and we talk about it every time that we deadlift, and the deadlift is a fundamental body movement, right?
Yeah.
You need it to be healthy as you grow older.
Yeah.
I always tell them, I go, here's the deal about the deadlift. It will never lie to you.
It's so true, man.
It is the most honest of all the lifts. You're going to walk over to that barbell, and you're either going to learn how to deal with your mind and practice your practice, or you're not.
I love it.
Right?
Yes.
So when we have deadlift day, which is once a week, I do all the programming. I'm a nerd for that. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's part of the talk that we have. And the funny thing is now it's not me doing a lot of that talk.
No.
It's our members who are like to the new person, and I love it. Like it vibes me up.
Yeah.
Like, listen, Jim, you're new. This is the most honest of all the movements.
Yeah.
And then I have some, one of our community members explaining to somebody else.
Yeah.
Or like a squat of any kind. When your life gets heavy and you have weight on your shoulders, you have to know how to manage that.
Yeah.
You have to know how to allow it to pull you down. And when the timing is right, you have to know how to stand back up with that weight on your shoulders.
It, man.
Right?
See?
Yeah. We have so many different sayings.
I love it, man.
A big one is, all you got to do is learn how to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because for like,
oh man,
think about
enjoy your suffering. Yeah.
Well, think about the recovery process.
Oh, for sure.
I tell people all the time. I do some treatment center classes at a place up in Heber, and one of the things I share with them all the time is I'm like, here's the deal. You, in your recovery, you either learn how to manage discomfort, or you're going the other direction.
Oh, for sure.
And I say to them, you guys, what was the biggest reason why you used? It never fails. 99% of the time, it's like, I just didn't like the way I felt.
Yeah.
So I say, oh, you were uncomfortable with how you felt.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see the lights come on, like, holy shit, maybe this guy.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
you're right.
And I say, in exercise, you have an opportunity to learn how to manage discomfort.
Yeah.
Because you're uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure.
If you're going to do, a set of kettlebell swings, it's challenging. But you get an opportunity to practice managing discomfort.
Love it.
So like you're saying, when they walk out of that, they go, oh my, wow, that was a really challenging workout. I did mountain climbers for 8 rounds of 20 seconds or whatever. Man, that was really hard for me, but I did it.
Yep.
What do you think that carryover of confidence, of self-esteem?
Oh man, I've seen it,
You
man.
know?
I've seen it. I remember one of my athletes years ago when we first started, we'd go out and we'd run these trails and he'd be running up these mountains and his legs would be on fire. And I'm like, dude, you are an amazing climber. And I'm like, how do you push through the pain? He's like, it hurts. He's like, but it doesn't hurt. I get emotional. He's like, it doesn't hurt as much as it hurt the day that the jail door slammed behind me and the sound reverberated in that pod. And I knew that on the other side of that was my kids and they were going to bed tonight without me. He's like, that hurt.
You're going to get me crying.
So I'm like, and I'm sitting there listening to him. He's like, so when I'm on those mountains and I'm burning, he's like, I know that this hurts, but not as bad as that. And I remember thinking, holy piss, this is taking on a whole new level of like introspection and self-awareness that I ever thought possible. And you've seen it. You know what this is. That's why I love that these things are happening in our community, man. I don't think, I mean, Utah, you guys are lucky that we have all these outlets.
Absolutely.
You know, and we were talking about this before we recorded. I heard you talking to Marissa, our athletic director over here, and about like the grants that we received and how important these things are. And I'm a firm believer that this is the direction that recovery is going to have to go. I mean, we own treatment centers and it was a nightmare. It was a cutthroat industry. We're like, we're done with this. I didn't like it. I know that there's a need for it, but it wasn't good. I wanted the grassroots level opportunities that you know, Warrior Strength and Addict to Athlete and the others provide. Yeah. Because it's here if you want it. All you have to do is show up.
Right. And it's such a different continuum of care.
Yeah.
We are literally building connection and relationship. You know, one of my favorite things, and it happens all the time in our space, somebody comes in, you know, they have all the fear and all the other stuff that comes along with it, but all of a sudden that starts to get chipped away.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I hear somebody say to somebody, we're going to go to Coffee Garden. You want coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or me and so-and-so went on a hike.
Yeah.
Or, man, I just love so-and-so because she's got to be the nicest person I've ever met. She came over and helped me with this at my house.
That's what blows me away.
It's like
this is their teammates.
This is it. This is connection.
It's the cure.
And it's just not the talk. It's the actual people helping people be better people.
See, that's the thing. I know so many times, you know, people have asked, well, what makes Addict to Athlete work? And I'm like, it's not the racing. It's not the, you know, the workouts. It's not even the stuff that we talk about. It's that stuff afterwards. It's the team approach, you know, and that's even when we did a 5K, Addict Athlete as a chapter up at Conquest, and they did this little 5K. It was like 25 loops around the inside of their track. It was so funny. And one of the guards walked up to me afterwards. He's like, I've never seen inmates cheer for other inmates. He's like, this is weird. And I'm like, it's the great equalizer, isn't it? Like athletics, sports, recreation, movement, it's a great equalizer. It's like we're all on the same team. That's why I keep telling my buddy, my coach, I'm like, I'm like, dude, we are all on the same team. I'm like, we need this stuff.
You know, it's movement, and I've thought about this a lot, and I've shared it with just a handful of people. I think we get to see each other's humanness.
Yeah.
You know, and that could be sometimes in the struggle. Sometimes that could be in the overcoming of the struggle.
For sure.
But we get to see that reflection of ourselves with each other. You know, and like in our community, it's such a wide variety of kick-ass people. But I can have people who are early 20s, brand new to fitness, in the beginning of their process.
Yeah.
Working with somebody who's, you know, X amount of years into their process, who has been working with Warrior Strength and me for, you know, even like I have a lot of people that I met at Fit to Recover that are in our community that I've worked with for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
They're strong. Yeah. They know these movements. They're in great shape. And it's like that person that's working with the new person gets to see themselves.
Exactly.
And then that new person gets to have that conversation with the other person and say, man, I'm so cool, or whatever, you know, you're so strong. Yeah. And they say, well, yeah, it was exactly where you were at 4 years ago.
I've always been. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
self-efficacy, yeah.
So we get to have that and build that. And I think in the gym, with movement, in the gym, on a course, we got a bunch of advantages.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We got all the physiological stuff going on for movement. which allows people to lower their guard a little bit. We feel pretty good. We get to see that connection with each other.
Yeah.
You know, and we get to like travel the road together.
Yeah.
Like it is so much easier to make it through something challenging when you got somebody next to you doing the same thing.
100%. I mean, I remember when I first started, we were running, and also my clients would start telling me this stuff about their lives. And I'm like, you guys are telling me all this stuff out here in public, but in my feng shui office, therapeutic office, you guys are like brick walls.
That's
what
great.
is this? And I remember thinking, I'm like breaking this new modality down, right? Like this could be crazy. It's just EMDR. Like when I got trained in EMDR, I'm like, it's the same thing. So, you know, you saw our gym, we have the 2 treadmills.
Yeah.
I'll put one person on this one and I'll be on the other. And they'll be, I've had kids, teenagers have been like gridlocked. And after about 5 minutes, they start talking. And it's the craziest thing. It's just, you know, it's this movement and just everything. Our bodies, you know, our bodies are designed to let this stuff go. I mean, that's why we REM sleep, you know, eyes back and forth. It's processing life. It's doing all this stuff. I love this modality so much. I'm so happy to hear like what you guys are doing. Like, and I didn't even know the half of it. I didn't know the metaphors and whatnot because it's got to have purpose, right? I mean, it's got to have purpose. Anyone can go to a gym. But when you have it for purpose and there's a reason behind it, it makes it so much more meaningful and I think more able for them to stick to it because they see the bigger purpose.
Right. Well, and it also is an introduction for a lot of people to think in a different way, maybe a bit deeper than what they normally do.
Yeah.
So there's a kettlebell movement called the Turkish get-up.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If people don't know, you basically lay down on your back, you hold a kettlebell over your head, and you stand all the way up, and then you go all the way down.
Yeah.
And when I teach people that movement, I'm like, in life, I can't tell you how many spiritual get-ups I've had to do.
Oh, man.
Where I'm on my back. I'm in that challenging time. I'm navigating new things that are hard, and I don't want to navigate them. But I have a slow, methodical system to get all the way up on my feet.
Yep.
And then I know, because I've practiced this get up so many times, how to go back down and rest if I need to, or go back down gracefully with intention. I've had people fall and start crying when we start doing that movement.
For sure.
It's slow.
It's more than a movement.
Yes, and when and as I explain these things, and sometimes I'll share with them events that I've had had to 20 years ago when I'm coming out of that crack house wanting to kill myself. That was me laying on my back.
Absolutely.
My first step with my hand up was me going to calling that treatment center. And I'll just break that whole process down for them.
Absolutely.
And they start crying. And they're like, yeah, I'm going through that right now. Or, I lost a loved one in my addiction, and I need to know how to stand up and get down. It helps people see deeper meanings in things.
100%. Metaphoric teaching is so important when it comes to this because of those connections that they can make. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's like, that is what I think creates those deeper understandings for each of them, because it's going to be different for each person, but they're all going to understand that if we get knocked down, all we have to do is get back up. I mean, doesn't like what Rocky, right? Doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. What matters is how many times you get back up.
Right.
Even with that situation where you had time and then you had the slip and the addiction reoccurrence, you knew what to do. You're like, okay, I'm down. I got to get back up.
Yep.
That's why people that are like multimillionaires that then lose all their money but then rebuild it, they blow my mind because I'm like, why can't I just do it once? Well, because that's not my mindset. Does it make sense? And I'm like, that's the coolest thing. And those analogies, listeners, those are real principles. And those are the things that you'll find at Warrior Strength and at Addict to Athlete and these programs we're talking about. I could keep talking to you for hours, man. You have to come back sometime.
I would love to.
But I'm curious, how do people find out more about you guys, where you're at, and how to join the squad?
Last thing before I forget.
Please.
We've talked a lot about while we support each other and we hold space for each other. But I know that you do this, and I think it's super duper important, man, is we got to celebrate with each other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, man, when I watch somebody do something in the gym that they've never done before, I light up when I see them light up.
Yeah.
Or when they come in and they say, hey, Frank, I just finished my last probation check-in.
Yeah, man.
Man, let's celebrate that. Let's go. You know what I mean? That's a huge milestone.
For sure.
And you need to be recognized for that. And you know what I mean? And I think that, like, this idea that it's either I see so many people, how do I put this? I watch so many people fall into the victimhood of their past.
For sure. It's a big one.
You know, and they're always going to be this thing that somebody puts a label on. Mm-hmm. No, you're not. Like you said it earlier. Like, celebrate these things that you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember one time a few years ago, I had somebody who got their first new car.
See?
I like high-fived the shit out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And he was like, whoa, over me getting a car?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you were able to go out and get a car is a big deal because I know where you came from.
Exactly.
I know where you were at a year ago. Mm-hmm. Give me a big old hug. Thank you, you know, because he wanted that, and I wanted to give that. You know?
He did, well, and the cool thing is he didn't expect it because it's never been given.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's like when those, like the inmates that were running, or even my athletes. I remember my original 5, you know, back then when we did that very first race, when they came down the finishing line and people were cheering for them simply because they were there. That's what got them to want to do the next one. Does it make sense? They're like, what was that? Right. Their families cheering them on because they simply thought they were all going to pass out and die. And, you know, it was the funniest thing. I'll never forget that, man. You know, May of 2011, when they ran that stupid race that just turned into this big thing, they all finished and they're like, it was incredible. Like, the people were cheering for me. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, you look at what humans need. We need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to be understood. And if we can give that to the athletes, to the people we come in contact with, man, that's money in the bank. You know what I'm saying? That's spiritual right there.
That is spirit.
So how do they find you? Like, where are you guys at?
Okay,
Tell us about how to connect.
Warrior Strength Gym, all one word.com is our website. You can always catch us on all the social media platforms. Instagram is WARRIORSTR number 8 NGTH.
Glad you can remember all that.
Yeah, I did.
Brilliant.
I feel pretty good about it. Facebook, Warrior Strength. And we're always open. I take a lot of pride in being able to serve people where they're at. So if people have physical ailments, mental ailments, things that they've never been able to work around, come down and see us. Yeah. I mean, because we can work through all of that.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing too is you know, if you guys are new to this too, just know that, like you said, the most courage you need is just to open the door and go in. Yep. Right. I mean, that's you're going to find the fellowship. You're going to find the warriors, you know, like mentality as you're meeting these new people, and they want you. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't think people realize that we want them.
Absolutely. And, you know, I understand how intimidating it can be.
Heck yeah.
You know, and I just want people to know that, like you said, we want people to join, and the people that are already in the community are people that are very, very aware of how intimidating it is to walk in. Mm-hmm. You know, like in our space, you're not going to run into cliques, and you're not going to run into meatheads, and you're not going to, you know, run into any of those things.
Exactly.
You know, we're all human beings. We'll all have our goods and our bad days. Yeah. But by and large, you know, they're just people that want to connect with other people and get better.
100%. So all you athletes north of here too, and some of you guys that don't mind driving, go check it out. Like, seriously, go check it out. I have a lot of faith in what Frank's got going, and I think that you know, this is why. So I'm so excited that, and I want to show the state and the country, like, that we here, we know what we're doing, you know, and to collaborate and to do things together, because eventually we're all on the same team. But I love the abilities that we all can do to have these experiences. You provide something that Addict to Athlete doesn't. And that's why I think it's kind of a cool thing to, like, you know, listeners, to broaden your recovery. You guys might need the 12 steps, but you also might need a physical outlet. You might also need residential treatment or individual therapy. Don't paradigm yourself into one outlet. Expand your horizon. That's what, you know, I mean, think about it.
Dude, I could not agree more. Yeah. And that's, they can all play with each other.
100%.
You know, in our community, we have a lot of people who attend 12-step meetings regularly. Yep. We have a lot of people who have other avenues that they go down for their recovery sources.
Absolutely.
We have some folks who the gym is what they do. And I remember how taboo that used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my.
I've had many conversations about that stuff.
And my thought is this. I have no idea what's good for. Sometimes I don't even know what's the best for me. Right?
Me too, man.
I got stuff that works for me, and I know it, so I stick with it. But I'm never going to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do, because I don't know what's right for them.
Exactly.
And I've just honestly, I've witnessed too many miracles to say that it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, and that's the thing. I remember I've had so many debates with people about you're switching one addiction to another. Well, this one's not going to put him in jail, and it's certainly not going to kill him. So it's one of those things too. It's been so funny, and I know you've had the same conversations. That's what I think is so
That's why
fun.
I'm laughing.
We could totally have these discussions.
Maybe we should do like an off.
We really could. We could do like a bonus episode of all the crazy stuff we've had to deal with. But listeners, check them out. I have full faith in what they've got going up there. We'll put the socials in the description of today's podcast, and continue to reach out. That's what we want to do, is create a community of people that can really kind of measure up to what they know they can become simply by showing up. Mm-hmm. And as always, listeners, continue to do your best and turn your mess into your message.
We'd like to thank our Patreon subscribers, the superfans Karen Hardy, Steve Riggs, Tracy Whitby, Jerem Thurston, Tara Butson, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Brett Frew, Chris Williams, Sensei KP Brown, Patrick Forsyth, Brock Ellerman, and Christy Case. We'd like to thank our rookie fans, Sione and Mary Inuk, Sherry Polson, Earl Dyer, and Wendell Wood. Our pro levels, Andrew Baird and Gary Thurston, and our champion level subscribers, the Robinson family, and Ron and Dee Loesch. Thank you, and please check out patreon.com/addict TO Athlete. Join our Patreon program for exclusive content and exclusive swag from Addict to Athlete. Patreon.com/Addict to Athlete.